All right, everybody. So we are back. 2 days ago, I had you at the end of our last conversation. I asked you to do something. I asked you to check in with yourself and maybe, think about a person, think about somebody who just maybe knows how to get under your skin, push the right button, navigate the right scenario. Make sure my mic's on. Maybe it was a direct report, maybe it was a peer, maybe it was your boss, maybe it was somebody at home, and a face or a name came up for you probably fast, and you didn't probably have to work to figure out like, oh, who's the person, especially if you're navigating inside of either a corporate or a working environment on a consistent basis, or if you just work around people. So here's my question for today: is that person still on your mind? And if they are, and I think maybe for a lot of you, they probably are, especially if now that I've gone through this and you were here on a Wednesday. That's not an accident. That's the work saying, hey, I'm still here. That's the work. So, my name is Kelvin Jenkins. I am the owner, founder, and CEO of AP Business Collective. And this is the Do University that I've been talking about. I got told to go and do some things. And so, here, this is part of me reciprocating that and doing it as well. Tuition is going to be effort, and the degree that you'll get from joining in on these sessions is going to be experience. So, last time we talked about emotional intelligence, and I'm sure many of you have heard all kinds of theories. I'm sure many of you know about it. You've heard about it at work. It's all over. If you listen to any podcast nowadays, someone is talking to you about emotional intelligence. So, and I made the case that last time most leaders don't have a caring problem when it comes to emotional intelligence. They have a skill problem. And I gave you the first name. And, I gave you the first whole move of it. And that's to name it. Just name what it is that you're feeling before you have the opportunity to react, before you do something, before anything else. Can you just grab a hold of, hey, I feel blank? And I want to give you an extra kind of layer beneath that. There's a really cool book if you're interested in it. It's called Nonviolent Communication. I'm trying to think of who the author is. If you know me or you stick with me for any time, you'll learn that name recall is the thing that kind of messes me up. Marshall Rosenberg, I think, is the author of Nonviolent Communication. Someone correct me on that or put it in the chat and let me know. He has this framework though, and it's really cool because in nonviolent communication, he talks about naming the feeling. And sometimes we'll name the thought, sometimes we'll name the impact, sometimes we'll name all these other things. Like, I think you did this to me. I feel like you did. And he calls it out. He's like, look, anytime that you have to add in a whole bunch of things before the actual feeling, it's probably not a feeling. It's probably not. Feelings are normally based on emotions, based on how you're actually feeling. I feel neglected. I feel rejected. I feel upset. I feel happy. I feel joyous. I feel frustration. Not, I feel like you were trying to do 1, 2, and 3. That might be some intuition happening there. However, that's not a true emotional feeling. There's an emotion that's attached to it. And can you even name what that is? All right. So today I gave you kind of like the preamble and some extra stuff that you've heard of, maybe you haven't. Today, we're going to take this a step further from just being able to name it. And I'll be honest with you, today's probably more uncomfortable than naming, right? So today's probably the uncomfortable one of all the stuff that we're going to go through. Because last time we talked about how your brain writes a story and then your brain starts going into this whole story and it creates these scenarios, it creates these possibilities. Like, even fear is a story about what could or what couldn't happen. So our brains tell us stories about people. A lot of the times that's tied back into our own personal biases and a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on. We can go into sociology and we can go into the socialization of who you are. We are not going to go that deep today. We're just going to talk about the next level after you've begun to name the thing. What happens after? And I kind of want to be honest with you. The stories that we tell ourselves cost you. It really costs you. The fact that I was able to bring up someone and it probably brought up a visceral reaction cost you. And it's probably costing that person too. And it's costing you without you even realizing that you're telling yourself a story. So I just want to be upfront with you. Today may be a little bit less comfortable. And that's okay, because the whole point of you showing up to something like this isn't because you came here for me to pat you on the back and tell you good job. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll celebrate the wins. And the reality is that the more I talk to you, the more I hold myself accountable. So it's not just you that's going to be uncomfortable today, it's also going to be me. So, with that said, let's get back to the map. All right. Remember, map is mindsets, actions, and people. So, everything in leadership, I believe, travels through that. And it always is going to start with the mind. What's happening? Where's our mindset? So last time we camped out at mindset, we kind of hung out there for a little while. And I want to remind you again that your brain is an incredible storyteller, and it's fast. Somebody misses a deadline, they don't care. That's what our brain tells us. Like, they don't even care. Somebody pushes back at a meeting. Remember I said this last time. Why are they always so difficult? Why are you an issue? Why are they a problem? Somebody doesn't answer your email, they're ignoring me. Like, duh, obvious. Hello. And then we'll use like phrases like common sense will tell you that. It's like, common sense is a sociological agreement between people. So we may not even have the same grounding for that agreement to be true. Again, I nerd out and stuff, but I'm going to try to stay focused for today and keep us locked in. So you didn't sit down and choose those narratives. Like, I don't think you did. I don't think you in the moment were like, yeah, what am I going to do with this one? Yeah, you know what? They don't care. Like, it normally doesn't happen that way. It just kind of shows up. Your brain went into the filing cabinet. It was like, what's in here? Okay. This is yeah. And it's super quick. So I did it all slow, but it's like, choom. And it pulled the closest match from something you've already lived through and handed it to you as though it was a fact. And I said it then, and so I'm going to say it again today. Your fastest story that your brain creates is almost never your fairest story. It's not always a story that's equal. It's not always a story that's right. It's not always a story that's even considerate. But here's what I didn't get into last time that we're going to get into right now. Because if the story had just stayed in your head, like, honestly, we wouldn't need to have part 2 of this, and work would go easier. Team members would be working better together. We'd be navigating the world very different if the stories we had just stayed in our head. Wouldn't need a whole session on it. You'd have a private thought. It would pass. No harm, no foul. Nobody gets hurt. It's in one ear almost and out the other. But that's not how it happens. You know that's not how it goes down. What happens is the story, it gets a job. The story gets to go to work for you. It's an employee almost. Because once your brain decides that person doesn't care, it doesn't just sit there neutral. That story doesn't just chill like, yeah, I'm just here. No, it starts collecting. Our brain starts collecting more information, and it's called confirmation bias. And I need you to understand that it's not a passive thing. It's an active search. Our brain starts to go shopping for evidence that you were right. And I don't know how many of you have ever gone to a store and you're like, I know it's supposed to be here. I know it's supposed to be in this section, on this aisle, underneath this sign. I know it. And then you talk to someone who's like, no, ma'am, sir, like, no, we don't even sell that here. You're like, no, I know you. Sometimes we are convinced with ourselves that we have to be right about something because being wrong is painful. And what does our brain do? It tries to shield us from moments of pain. So your brain is going to look for stuff. And when it comes to confirmation bias, you are always going to find it. Your brain is going to find it. It always finds it. Because if you look at any human for 30 days with the question of, man, what is wrong with them? What is wrong with them? Something's going on with them. I know it is. You start ruminating, which is ruminate means to like continuously chew, absorb, bring it back up, ruminate some more, absorb, bring it back up. Like, you're eating this thing, looking for the essence and breaking down so that you can find the nutrient to justify your claim. Your brain is going to build a case. And I could do that to you. You could do that to me. That's not insight. That's not special. You're not special because you can do that. Like, that's just attention pointed at one direction. There's a lot of these people nowadays are really talking about, like, I don't want to say name it and claim it, but a lot of folks will be like, name it and claim it, put your intentions in it, name it in the universe, and it'll just happen. Like, no, there is a power of intentionality. And the more you look for something, the more likely you are to find that thing. It's not magic, it's people. It's who we are, it's what we do. So watch what starts happening and be honest with yourself as I go through some of what I'm going to talk about today, because none of these things that I'm going to mention right now are going to feel like a decision, but they are. Your emails to that individual start getting shorter. The person that kind of rubs you the wrong way. Maybe not shorter in length, maybe they get shorter in warmth. Maybe they just get irritated in the vacuum, like, here they go again. Why do they always got? I had this happen actually today. Someone sent me a message, and I'm not going to say too much because they might be watching this, but someone sent me a message, and like my mind started being like, why are they like, duh? It was a duh moment, like, duh. And I kid you not, my brain went back. I was like, yeah, they did it this time. They did it this time. They do it this time. They did it. And I was going back through like instances of like, why do they always, right? You start saying always, you know you're going maybe down the wrong path. And I had that happen this morning, and I know better. So again, me doing these sessions is not just about holding you accountable, it's also about holding me accountable. So there's a loop that started happening, and I started looping them in just like you start looping them in. You loop all these stories together and you start creating a narrative. All right. Another type of example, and since I'm using the word loop, let's just stick with loops. Another example is maybe you start looping this person in less. Maybe you start bringing them into the conversation less than you did before. Maybe there's a meeting, there's a thread, there's a conversation, and you just don't think of them. Or you do think of them and you think, it might be, they'll be all right. It might even be easier without them, if I'm being honest. Okay, maybe another thing. Maybe, we're gonna hit on a couple, maybe one or two more of these. Maybe this is a good one. This goes back to the cycle of stuck. Y'all know I like talking about this one. Maybe you start double checking all their work. Maybe now you're looking for that problem. Work that you used to just be good with. And it's not because they made some egregious mistake. It's something else is starting to happen here. Maybe. Here's another one. Maybe you start giving all the good projects, the fun projects, the good assignments, the ones with spotlight and shine. Maybe you start taking work away from this person and start giving the juicy, good stuff to somebody else, because this one matters. And again, we're not talking about someone who's doing bad performance-wise. This is not a performance issue. This is a you issue. This is a me issue. We have this thing happening on the inside that is this person. Nah. And here's the one that gets me, because y'all know I was gonna pull up my jug, but some of y'all gonna talk about it. Don't matter. I'm gonna pull it up anyway. This is water. All right. I need a sip for this one because this one frustrates me the most. And maybe not. I don't know why, but it almost feels like you're setting somebody up to fail with this one. As a leader, your job, whether you like to believe this or not, your responsibility is to coach your team. Now, I talk about this pendulum almost that goes back and forth between being a coach and being directive. But sometimes you stop coaching this individual. Sometimes you even stop giving them the hard feedback, which sounds like kindness, but it's not. It is not kind, because you've quietly decided that they're not worth the investment, and that's what makes it unkind. And you'll never say that out loud. Like you won't tell them that. You won't walk to people like, man, you're not worth the investment. I'm not investing in you today. Like, no. And you don't even say it to yourself, like, oh my gosh, they're just not worth the investment. No. These are little subtle things that start chipping away at our ability and capacity to be great leaders. And like I told you, I had a moment this morning. So I've done this. And so I want to be clear and I want to be honest with you. I'm not up here talking like, come up to the mountain, be a good leader. Like that's not, I'm not here talking about other people either. I've been this leader. I've been this person. Maybe not all these scenarios. I haven't done all these things, right? That maybe you have. Maybe that's okay too. Viva Las Vegas. What happens here stays here. You can change. But I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have written some people off in my head. And then I've gone around in my mind collecting receipts along the way to kind of prove that I was right. And some of you are keeping a file. Forget receipts. Some of you have mental filing cabinets of people and receipts and why they are not as great as they think they are, why this, why that. Maybe it's a mental filing cabinet, and some of y'all maybe got a real actual like document filing cabinet. I had a leader one time. Oh my goodness. I come back from a funeral. I buried my grandfather. And I didn't know they had all this feedback for me that they had been like sitting on from like the day I got there. Like literally, I kid you not, it was from the day so we're talking like a year's worth of feedback they gave me when I got back from bereavement. You know, like, oh, feedback is a gift, and I just want to gift you with. I want to be like, look here, this is the same person that told me they had a bias against me, but we won't rehash that. Look, I'm about to have an emotional situation. What I'm feeling right now is frustration, disappointment. I can at least name the stuff. All right. So let's be real, right? Like, I'm not saying documentation is bad. I'm not, because I've worked in areas where we have to, let's put it like this. I've worked in management environments where there's like a labor union agreement, and the only way to move a process forward is to have very strict, rigid documentation. And that is just the environment. I've worked in labor management areas in various industries, and that's real. Even when working with some HR leaders and some HR teams, some managers who know that they have people who are verifiably not doing well, not performing well, you have to have some level of documentation. Like, I'm not disregarding documentation. Sometimes documentation is exactly what a situation requires, but be honest with yourself about when the file started and what started the file. Did it start because there was a real performance issue? Or maybe did it start the day your brain decided who this person was, and everything in it since then has been you trying to prove your own backstory to yourself? That's the question. And only you know the answer. Now, here's where it all kind of lands, and we'll navigate into that. This brings us to the people part. That person has no idea that any of this stuff is actually happening. Think about it. There is a story about them living in your head that you've probably said in some way, shape, or form to other people in the environment. I've already told you that the actions have already kind of been following. They're feeling like, man, I'm not doing well enough, but so-and-so's got my back. So, I'm really trying. They're living in a world shaped by your mind that has shaped their assignments, shaped their access, shaped their development, shaped their reputation, shaped their promotion, and they have never seen it. Nobody told them this world of your imagination exists. And when we talk about being a leader, we talk about setting clear expectations. They do not have a clear expectation from you right now. And everything they do is just, making it worse. They're being tried in a courtroom almost. Like, imagine this. Imagine, that you go into a courtroom and you start having a trial for someone and that person is not there. And they don't get to testify. They don't get to say their part. No one hears from them. And we cast judgment. It's deep. Again, I mentioned this on Wednesday. People will be like, oh, those are soft skills. That's how, wow, woo woo. No, this is not a soft problem. That's a fairness problem. And it's happening in your organization right about now, in somebody's head about somebody who has no clue. And here's what they do experience, though. Remember those paper cuts, those microaggressions I told you about? If you weren't here on Wednesday, if you could just imagine with me, and those of you that were, you cover your ears for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Imagine a paper cut. Imagine the paper gliding across your index finger. That. Now, some of you had a whole visceral, like, oh. Paper cut, remember, a paper cut, unless it gets infected and gangrenous and all that other stuff, or it's laced with something, doesn't kill you. But a lot of them, constantly, over time, it's a big problem. It's painful. And you don't always know why. You're like, man, what is happening? The slightly shorter email, the meeting that they weren't in, the project that went to somebody else that they wanted to be a part of with no explanation, or like one of those kind of weak ones that like, yeah, I'm gonna take that from you because you're my boss, but that really doesn't make any sense at all. They feel every single one of those. The promotion that goes to somebody else that should have gone to them, even though they're doing the work of a leader within your team, but maybe, the hemming and hawing isn't good. And that individual who's experiencing all of this stuff, you probably lived this. If you're watching this and you're not a leader on a team, you can probably relate to this happening to you. You can't name it. You just can't name it. Because on its own, each one of those is too small to kind of sometimes raise a flag to. It's like something, but what are you gonna do? What is that person gonna do? Huh? Are you gonna go to the boss and be like, hey, your email had a tone and I didn't like it? Like, what are you talking about? Why did you read it that way? Oh my goodness. And don't get gaslit. And don't start gaslighting if you're a leader. Don't do that. Get curious. Don't get gaslighty, get curious. But if a person brings something to you about an email's tone verbally, you're like, they might sound ridiculous. They might sound like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? So those folks say nothing. And some of you watching this, you've been on both sides, or maybe you're on the side where this has been happening to you and you don't say anything. You just adjust. Leaders, I want you to realize this. Those of you that have teams, those of you that are in HR and training and development, those of you that are inside of industry right now, and you're working to try to figure out what's going on certain teams that you're assigned to support, certain teams that are underneath your purview, certain leadership divisions within the company. I want you to pay attention to this from your perspective and like hold that perspective of where you're looking from. Those of you that are being managed, those of you that are not in leadership roles currently, I want you to hear this next piece from your perspective. The person who has been looked over, the person whose assignments are being handed off, the person who's not being allowed to be on project, the person who is starting to feel those short emails, the person who's navigating through all that stuff, they stop bringing the good ideas. They stop volunteering. They do exactly what is required and nothing more, because doing more has not been working. And one day they may leave. One day they're gone. And leaders tend to say this: I had no idea that they weren't happy. I don't know why they left. I don't know why they would have. I mean, this is no one leaves our department. No one leaves the blank, 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 blank company. No one. Who does like, oh, you know, we have our issues, but who would leave? We have benefits. Have you seen the job market? Yeah, but people are people, and you can't keep them unhappy forever. And really, the reason why you didn't know that they were unhappy is because they stopped telling you a long time ago how they felt. And you read their silence as everything was being just fine. And here's the part that I really, really need leaders to see, like, and sit with. Everything I just described, how did it start? Remember my whole premise is it all started with the mind. It all started with one singular thought, one story that your brain wrote in about half a second, faster than I can snap my fingers, on a day that you were tired about something you didn't have the full picture on. That's it. It's the whole origin is just poof. And you never checked it. That's the actual failure here. That you had the thought and you didn't check it. It's not a problem that you had the thought. Like I told you, like if it was just a story and it lived in your brain, no problem. You're gonna have thoughts. You have a brain, you have a history, you have story, you have all kind of stuff. A thought is coming. If you have ears and eyes or sensory, the ability to sense the external world, you're gonna have some thoughts. The failure, and I told you this is gonna be uncomfortable. The failure is that in your organization, you have leaders who never go back, never think back and ask whether it's true. Sometimes we're the ones who never go back and ask, is it true? Daniel Amen has this really cool thing about ants, automatic negative thoughts, and he talks about it. He's like, there's a question that I want people to ask when you have this automatic thought of like, oh, this thing, is it true? And you may be able to justify the first one, like, yeah, it's true. 1, 2, and 3, won't, yeah, it's true. Then he asked this, he's like, then you got to ask the second question. Is it absolutely true? Yeah, that's a good one right there. And that's a hard thing to say that it's absolutely true. So let's talk about the move that this is going to take. Wednesday, I kind of gave you the name it. So how do you begin to like name what is happening in the moment? This is step 2, and I called this one out last time about framing it. So how are you going to frame it? Now, name it was all about what's happening in you, inside. Like, what am I feeling? How do I even get a hold to know what I'm feeling right now? Framing it is all about the story. And I'm going to borrow language from the clinical world here because people tend to like, we like experts, and we like it when people use stuff that sounds, expert level. And because it just translates easily. So in medicine, you typically don't take the first thing that you see and start treating that. It's premature closure. I did EMT work. I was a nationally registered EMT for a very short stint of my life. Like on the timeline of my life, it was like boop. But they drilled us hard before we were able to actually take the NREMT and all this other stuff. And we look for signs and symptoms. Just because there is a sign, just because I see something, doesn't mean that that's the real thing. I have to also ask the symptoms. There's this thing that used to be called sample. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it all right now. So if you're watching this and you're in the medical field, forgive me. It's been over a decade, longer than that. So think we used to call it sample, like signs and symptoms, allergies. We would look through all these things, medications, SAMP. I forget what the other ones are. But we would look down this whole like line item of things, like what caused this, what was the onset, what happened, leading up to this, what was going on. Are there any other emergencies or things going on? When we were going in for CPR, even you're looking, what are the ABCs, like airway, breathing, and circulation? So it's not just, oh, I found a person laying down. It's, okay, I found a person laying down. Where am I? First off, is the environment safe? Like, because this person could be trying to trick me. Sternum rub, sidekick, whatever. And I'm trying to figure out, like, is it good? Gag reflex. Are they conscious and playing games? Then I'm checking airway. Like, okay, is there anything visually inside of the airway that's stopping air from coming? Okay, no, there's nothing stopping it. Are they breathing? Crucial. Maybe the chest is rising and falling, but I couldn't see it when I was too far away. Circulation, am I checking pulse? Is there a pulse here? So we never, and I know that sounds like a lot of steps, but you really do it in quick succession. It's a very fast process. It doesn't take very long to know if someone's unresponsive. But you don't just take the first thing that presents and start treating it. That is premature. That's how people get hurt. You run the differential. You ask what else this could be before you actually commit to a line of treatment, before you actually commit to something. You do that with a chart. Most of us have never once done it with a person. All right. So I want you to understand that framing has to do with asking some of those sample questions, asking some of those ABCs to your own story. And I'm going to give you 3 questions. I'll think of maybe some, I don't know, some pseudonym, not pseudonym, but maybe an acronym at another time. But I'm going to give you 3 questions that you can ask to use. And I'm only going to ask you to start using one of them today. Just one. So I can keep this very simple for you. Question number 1. So I'm going to share 3, and then I'm going to have you work on 1. Question number 1. Are y'all ready? What else could explain what's happening? Not what's the nicest explanation. What else is possible? Make yourself come up with 2 or 3. Not because they're all true, but because the second you have more than one story, the first one stops being a fact and goes back to being a guess, which is all it ever was. So again, for those of you that didn't catch that, question number 1, what else could explain what's happening? What else can explain this? Okay. Question number 2, and this is the one that might hurt a little bit. We'll see. You're in a safe space. What would I think if my favorite person in the world did the same exact thing that this person just did to me? And maybe you don't have a favorite person in the world. Maybe that's too extreme. What would I think of my favorite person on the team did the same exact thing? Same behavior, same missed deadline, same tone in the meeting, different person. And if your answer changes, and for most of us on most days it always does, then you didn't have a performance read. You had a bias read. If it's the same facts with a different verdict, the only variable could have been who done it. And that question has stopped me cold more than once. I told you about this morning. I had another person text me right after that first person, and my response, my thinking, and all that was totally different. It's me. I don't love it. I don't love this one. I don't love question number 2. And that's how I know it works. All right, question number 3. This is the final one. What evidence would change my mind? What evidence would change my mind? And if your answer is honestly nothing would change my mind about this, If you cannot name one single thing this person could do that would update your story on them, that would update your narrative about them, then you are not assessing that person anymore. You've already reached a verdict. And now, like I said, confirmation bias, you are just gathering information to support it. So those are the three. Those are the three. What else could explain this? Number one, what if it were my favorite person doing this? Number two. Number three, what evidence would change my mind? All right, so now that you have all three of those, kind of moving on real quick, we'll close this out soon. You have an assignment, and I want you to actually go and do it. I know I've been using these as opportunity to kind of just give you free game, free information, free stuff that you can leverage. I'm gonna start leveraging assignments too for anyone that's up to the challenge. And I actually want you to go and do it, not just be like, yeah, that was good. What he said was good. Or be like, man, I don't believe anything he has to say. Like, who does he think he is? Well, if you haven't tried it, try it. What evidence could I give you to have you think differently about this whole situation? If I was your favorite person on YouTube or your favorite podcaster and I said the same exact thing, would you try it? And what else could explain what it is that I'm giving you? What else could explain it away? See what I did there? All three of my questions right back at you. Boom. All right, so your homework, and if you choose to accept or not. That person that you thought about at the beginning of this whole session, I want you to pick one of these three questions, just one of them, and I want you to run it on them before the end of the day. If you didn't have a person at the beginning of this, you probably will, by the end of the day, have someone that does something to you that maybe triggers something. So start looking for it. Look for these opportunities. And I want you to use one of those questions, not verbally. I want you to use it on yourself. Excuse me. So that's it. Like, you don't have to have a conversation with them. You don't have to forgive anybody. You don't have to go around repenting about nothing, making nothing right. You don't even have to change your mind. I'm not even asking you for that. I'm asking you for the first step is just, I want you to check the story. I just want you to check the one story that you have one time. Because I have a promise that some of you are going to run that second question and go, oh, some of you are like, some of y'all are doing it already. You've already run through the questions. Thank you. And that O is like a whole thing. That's work. Remember, we've already named the emotion. Now we're framing the story. Now, and I'm going to stop myself, same as last week, because I can get into like the whole thing. I enjoy this work, so some of that comes out. Because naming it and framing it, I want you to understand that those are just two components inside of all the other work that we could like go down a rabbit hole of what you should do next. And not only is it inside of a framework, it's really internal work that goes on up here in your own head. And remember, these are just two pieces of a whole framework. There's two more come after this. And that's the claim it and tame it. And those are about what you are actually going to do out loud in a room, in a meeting with people, when the pressure is real, when the heart rate is, when all that is happening. That's where I know today may be a little bit difficult and challenging. The ante kind of raises, the reward also raises as we go along. And that's honestly a totally different conversation because these 4 moves are just a simple way. And I'm not saying that they're like simple to always necessarily do, but they're simple to say, and they're not always simple to install inside of real relationships that have already gone sideways. Like, we would need a whole nother session and a whole lot more time to talk about that. And we're not doing that today. So I'm going to leave it right here on purpose. And 2 things before I let you go. The first one, the easy one, if this was useful, follow the page. Like this video, share it, give some comments. Like, Do some of those things to at least let me know. Any of you that are facilitators or presenters, or you work inside of any field that has measurements, you know that measurements matter to us. Like, we want to know feedback of how we're doing, if this is valuable or not. All right. And when I say share, let me be specific about who I kind of would love for you to share this with. I don't want you to send this to the person that you're having conflict with, the person that you like, yeah, you need this because you the like, wrong. Some people are like, there's no wrong question. Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Please don't do that. That is not the move. Like, that's not the move at all. Send it to another leader. Send it to a peer. Send it to somebody who's carrying a team, who carries a lot, who cares a lot. Remember, we talked about the folks that care a lot. That's not always the issue. Send it to somebody who's tired. Send it to someone who has never once been told that the problem might be a skill and not their heart or their care for their team. That's who I want you to send this to. Okay? And the second thing that I want you to do, this is real, this is helpful. If while I was talking, you realize the person you were thinking about isn't just a person, but it's an actual situation, maybe within your organization or within your team. Maybe they're not just a thought exercise, maybe a real thing you've been carrying. Maybe it's a person, a team, a conversation you've been avoiding for maybe a while now. Let's talk about it. And I want to be clear about what I mean when I say let's talk about it, because I know how this usually goes. I'm not asking you to figure out which program you need or what do I sign up for? How do I navigate? Everybody and their mama right now is making an offer to people to do something. And we're like, so much. I'm getting emails all the time like, do you have this problem? Do you want to? I'm like, this is a lot. So for those of you that went through this with me today and you're like, man, I got some stuff I'd really like to navigate, I don't want you to have to look through a menu of services. You don't have to know whether it's a coaching or a workshop or a whole thing. That's not your job. One conversation is the only thing that you're required to do. You bring me the situation and we talk through what's actually going on underneath it. And we name what the potential next move is. And if that next move is somebody else in my network, I'm connected to a lot of smart people and a lot of people who do a lot of things that I don't do, or that just have personalities that mesh better with other people's than mine. I will tell you that. So the link will be on your screen. I'm going to drop it inside of this event as the first comment. So you'll have a link there. Book the conversation. It takes about 20 seconds to do the booking, maybe 30. And here's the killer part. Or maybe killer is not the right word. Here's the crucial part. It's going to cost you nothing but effort. So again, questions, drop them in the chat, drop them in the comments. You can direct message me like some of you have already been doing. Bring me the real situation, because that's the good stuff anyway. And the link is going to stay up the entire time. So it'll be there. It'll also be on apbusinesscollective.com. It's also there. You can find the link there. And again, if you're sitting on something real, book the conversation. The link is going to be in the first comment after this video. Or you can go directly to apbusinesscollective.com. Upper right-hand corner, there's a connect button. Click that, fill out the information. If you take one thing out of today, just kind of like, it's nice to give people parting words. You're going to have the thought, and that is not the problem. That's not the issue. You have a brain, you have a history, you have an upbringing, you have a background. The stories are going to come. The question is whether you ever check that thought. Because the story becomes how you treat somebody. And how you treat somebody becomes their entire experience of your leadership, or their only reference of what leadership looks like. So check the story. Thank you for your time. My name is Kelvin Jenkins. Keep doing and lead like it matters, because it does now more than ever before.